BTS just set the world on fire at Gwanghwamun Square, and the internet will never be the same again. They said K-pop groups do not survive military service. They said 4 years was too long. They said the world had moved on. They were wrong. BTS just performed live on Netflix in front of an estimated 260,000 people in Seoul, and millions more watching across every continent, every time zone, every corner of this earth. And if you have not pressed play yet, stop reading this right now, open Netflix, and watch what the greatest band in the world just did. We will be here when you get back. There are moments in pop culture history that you remember forever. You remember exactly where you were sitting, what you were wearing, who you were texting, how loud you screamed. You remember the feeling in your chest that was somewhere between unbearable joy and the kind of grief that comes from knowing something so perfect is happening, and it will never happen for the first time, ever again. March 21st, 2026 is one of those moments. Gwanghwamun Square in Seoul is a historic landmark built more than 600 years ago, and tonight it became the location where the 7 members of BTS made their own mark on history. Tonight, on a stage framed like a painting, with the ancient Gyeongbokgung Palace glowing behind them and mountains rising in the distance, and hundreds of thousands of ARMY members screaming their names into the Seoul night sky, RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook walked back out into the world, and the world absolutely lost its mind. This article is for every single fan who set an alarm at 3 in the morning. For every person who took a long lunch break and watched from their phone in a car park. For every ARMY in Lagos and London and Manila and Mexico City and Mumbai who sat in the dark with their light stick in their hand and tears running down their face before a single note had even played. This article is for you. You waited. And BTS delivered something that will be talked about for decades. Before we talk about tonight, we need to talk about what tonight actually means, because if you do not understand the weight of what just happened, the celebration does not land with the full force it deserves. For the first time in nearly 4 years, the septet made their highly anticipated return to the stage to perform live globally on Netflix. Before tonight, the last time all 7 members of BTS stood on a stage together as a complete unit, the world was a different place. Fans who were teenagers when BTS last performed together are now in college. People got married, had children, changed careers, moved across the world, survived things they did not think they would survive. And through all of it, ARMY waited. BTS's hiatus was driven by South Korea's mandatory military service requirements. In December 2022, the BTS members put their wildly successful careers on hold as each enlisted for up to 18 months of mandatory military service. Each one left at a different time. Each one came back at a different time. And the entire time, ARMY tracked every detail, celebrated every discharge, held their breath as the timeline slowly, agonizingly, ticked toward this exact night. Many Korean groups disband after enlistment, struggling to maintain their identity amid a rapidly changing pop culture landscape. So this event was also a statement. BTS is back, and they are ready to show the world exactly who they are. The statement was received loudly, overwhelmingly, with a level of emotional force that crashed social media platforms and broke streaming records and sent the word "Arirang" trending worldwide before the concert had even reached its halfway point. You cannot write about tonight without writing at length about where tonight happened, because the venue itself was not just a backdrop. It was a statement, a love letter, a declaration. The performance was held in Seoul's historic Gwanghwamun Square, and this is the first standalone concert ever held there. The back of the stage is shaped like a huge square, made up of layers of LED screens that perfectly frame the Gwanghwamun Gate and lush mountains behind it. The gate guards the entrance to Gyeongbokgung, a royal palace for Korea's Joseon dynasty, which ruled for more than 500 years, until 1910. Today, Gwanghwamun Square includes statues of 2 of South Korea's most respected figures, King Sejong, who in 1443 created the Korean Hangul script used today, and Navy Admiral Lee Sun-shin, who fought the Japanese invasion in critical battles during the 16th century. Think about that for a moment. BTS chose to make their comeback at one of the most culturally sacred outdoor spaces in the entire country. Not an arena, not a stadium, The square in front of a royal palace that has stood for over 6 centuries, watched over by the statues of national heroes, wrapped in the kind of history that most countries can only dream of. There was a lot of deliberation over whether to do this, and whether it was actually even possible. But BTS were absolute and steadfast in wanting to have this moment at this venue, and Seoul City got right behind them, knowing it would be a huge moment for the country on a global stage. The stage design, built by renowned events and production specialists Guy Carrington and Florian Wieder, was inspired by the concept of a picture frame, a structure that both grounds the show in the modern energy of BTS and simultaneously honors the historical and cultural significance of the venue. The team did not want to come in and build something that felt at odds with the location and just drop a concert into the middle of one of Seoul's most sacred spaces. What they created instead was a visual miracle. From every camera angle, through every television screen and phone screen and laptop screen streaming this on Netflix tonight, the LED frames formed a perfect border around the ancient gate, as if BTS were performing inside a living painting, with Korea's history as the canvas behind them. It was the kind of image that does not need a caption. It explains itself entirely. The concert was directed by Hamish Hamilton, the British director renowned for his work on huge entertainment events, including the annual Super Bowl halftime show and the Oscars, which gives an indication of the magnitude of BTS's return. Hamilton described the production as being among the most challenging he has ever taken on in terms of sheer logistical complexity, and when you understand what he was working with, that statement becomes even more remarkable. Because it is an outdoor space, the production team and BTS could not do any rehearsals on the stage beforehand. There was no rehearsal with the band on the stage at all, which Hamilton himself admitted was something he had not done before. But through 17 Super Bowls, you learn. No rehearsals. No run-throughs. No opportunity to iron out the creases on the actual stage with the actual band in the actual space. Just 7 men who have been performing together since their teenage years, trusting their bodies and their chemistry and their shared history to carry them through the biggest moment of their collective career. And carry them it did. Before a single note played, the story of tonight was already being written by the people who showed up. Around 22,000 fans had tickets for the show, but the concert was expected to draw approximately 260,000 people into the Gwanghwamun Square area. That is 250,000 human beings descending on a single square in central Seoul to be physically present for something they had been waiting years to experience. The streets around Gwanghwamun were not just full. They were overflowing. People arrived hours and hours before the show began. They camped. They dressed up. They came in their thousands from every corner of South Korea and from countries across the world. Government data released ahead of the concert showed foreign arrivals to South Korea in early March rose more than 30% from a year earlier, suggesting an influx of overseas BTS fans ahead of the concert. Several BTS fans attending the concert were inspired by hanbok, a traditional Korean dress. In the weeks ahead, social media had been flooded with outfit inspirations that incorporate hanbok styling and accessories. One fan named Vivian Ferrier, who traveled from the United States specifically for this concert, wore an ornate floor-length jacket and dress alongside traditional Korean hair clips and accessories, blending her love of the group with a deep respect for the culture the group has always been rooted in. This is what BTS does. They do not just make fans who enjoy their music. They make fans who study Korean, who travel to Seoul, who learn about Joseon history and read about King Sejong and understand why a song called Arirang is the unofficial national anthem of an entire people. They make fans who show up. And tonight, the fans showed up in numbers that broke records and defied expectations and made the whole city feel like the beating heart of the entire planet. If you were watching on Netflix tonight, you know exactly what that opening felt like. To open the epic comeback performance, BTS chose Body to Body, the first track of the group's newly released album Arirang. It is a striking and fitting choice, as it is emblematic of the group's identity, declared with clarity and power, born in Korea, playing for the world. The members walked to the stage, flanked by a group of dancers, with the effortless confidence of people who have been doing this their entire adult lives. And then RM, the leader, the man whose quiet and steady presence has always been the anchor of this group, opened his mouth and said 4 words that caused millions of people around the world to collapse. He said in Korean, "Hello Seoul, we are back." And the reception from the audience was one of pure joy, the sound of people who have been holding their breath for years and can finally exhale. Think about everything that was packed into that sentence. Everything those 4 simple words contained. Nearly 4 years of waiting. For years of solo work and military uniforms and discharge ceremonies and fan-made countdowns. For years of ARMY holding on to a promise that had never officially been made, but had somehow never been doubted. And then RM stood on that stage in front of Gyeongbokgung Palace and said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they had never been gone at all. "Hello, Seoul. We're back." The crowd response was audible even through screens. If you had noise-canceling headphones on while watching Netflix tonight, you would have taken them off just to feel the full force of what that sound meant. What happened in the second half of the opening number was one of the most visually and emotionally stunning sequences in BTS concert history. In the latter half of Body to Body, the focus shifted to a group of singers and musicians wearing hanboks and other traditional Korean attire typical of the Joseon era. They performed the sample of Arirang that was used in Body to Body. Arirang, which is also the name of BTS's recently released full-length album, is Korea's most famous and beloved traditional folk song, often considered an unofficial national anthem and a symbol of Korean identity and pride. The contrast was breathtaking in the best possible way. The pulsating modern production of BTS, the LED screens blazing, the dancers moving, the choreography precise and powerful, and then suddenly this ancient melody rising from the center of the stage, sung by performers in centuries-old traditional dress, in front of a gate that has stood for 600 years. Past and present, Korea and the world, heritage and ambition, all colliding in a single performance. It was the kind of artistic choice that makes you understand why BTS are not just a music group. They are curators of something, guardians of something. They bring their culture with them wherever they go, and they present it not as a curiosity but as a foundation, as something to be proud of, as something the world should see and understand and honor. You cannot talk about this concert without talking about the album that made it possible. The timing could not be more satisfying. Arirang, the group's 5th studio album, arrived on March 20th, just one day before the concert, turning release week into a tightly sequenced global spectacular. In a 24-hour window, new music dropped and BTS's first live performance in years followed. The concert features a mix of iconic tracks alongside live debuts from the new album's 14-song tracklist. Teasers have hinted at a more personal, reflective tone, with Jimin previously saying the group gave deep thought to their identity while working on the record. The album is named after the Korean traditional folk song that serves as the country's unofficial national anthem. It explores themes like personal identity and belonging. When a group of 7 men who spent nearly 4 years apart, some of them in military service, some of them releasing solo work, some of them rebuilding themselves in ways the public will never fully know, come back together and make an album about identity and belonging, that album is not just music. It is testimony. It is evidence. It is a document of survival. And the fact that their lead single Swim shot straight to the top of the Melon chart in South Korea within hours of release tells you everything you need to know about whether the world was ready for BTS to come back. The world was more than ready. The world was starving. Numbers can be cold and clinical, but sometimes only numbers can convey the true scale of what just happened tonight. 260,000 people estimated in and around Gyeongwamun Square in Seoul. Millions more watching live on Netflix across 34 countries. Social media breaking in real time. The Netflix chatroom going viral, with fans flooding in from every time zone. Netflix opened a communication window for fans and ARMY, and from early afternoon on March 21st, the countdown video drew thousands of fans to interact before the show had even started. Done and Dusted, the production company behind the show, had their team workshopping key moments of the performance with BTS members, sometimes using iPhones, building the creative vision piece by piece until it was exactly what it needed to be. The result was a production that felt simultaneously enormous and intimate, a concert that could fill a royal palace square and still make every individual fan feel like BTS was performing directly for them. That is the gift. That has always been the gift. The ability to be massive and personal at the same time. No story this big is ever perfectly clean, and tonight was no different. A day before the reunion concert, Big Hit Music announced that RM suffered an ankle injury and was taken to a hospital to undergo a detailed examination and treatment. The singer was expected to be on stage, but his choreography would be partially limited, the statement confirmed. The fandom held their collective breath for 24 hours. Messages of support poured in. Speculation ran wild. And then, when the opening number began, and RM walked out onto that stage and said, "Hello, Seoul, we are back," the relief was almost as loud as the excitement. He was there. All 7 of them were there. Whatever the limitations, whatever the adjustments, the leader showed up. And that, for ARMY, was everything. Tonight was not a destination. Tonight was a beginning. The world tour announcement that fans have been anticipating is coming. The interviews, the magazine covers, the late-night appearances, the fan meetings, the entire beautiful chaos of BTS being fully, completely, unstoppably active again is all unfolding in real time. What happened at Gwanghwamun Square tonight was the opening chapter of the next era of the greatest band the world has ever produced, and that era is going to be spectacular. If you have not watched the concert yet, it is still on Netflix right now. Pull it up. Turn the lights down. Turn the volume up. Watch RM say, "Hello, Seoul, we are back," and let yourself feel exactly what that means. Watch the hanbok performers rise from the stage and sing Ararang in front of a 600-year-old gate while BTS stands beside them, representing everything Korea was and everything it is becoming. Watch Jungkook hit a note that makes the crowd scream so loud you can feel it through your screen. Watch Jimin move across that stage like gravity does not apply to him. Watch Suga and J-Hope and Jin and V do what they have always done, which is make you believe that music is not just something you hear, but something you survive together. BTS came back tonight. They came back to Seoul. They came back to ARMY. They came back to the world. And the world will never be the same for it.